left us with a bit of a cliffhanger ending with who and what Demerzel is. And this week we get a lot of backstory on her as well as what might happen with the future of the Foundation as well. If you haven't guessed, I'm talking about Foundation Season 2, Episode 9. So if you haven't seen it, this will contain spoilers. And as always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review. So Season 1 was criticised for being a little slow-paced, and Season 2 has definitely addressed that concern and upped the game in the pace of the show. We've only got one episode left this season, and they cram a lot in this week. So let's get to it, but before that, just to say, thanks for taking the time to choose to watch this video. I really appreciate it, and if you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the channel, and if you make it all the way to the end, leave a like as well. So, this episode opens up giving us the backstory in Demerzel that we've all been waiting for, going all the way back to Trantor over 600 years ago, to the original Cleon, and at the youngest point that we've ever seen him. And this was before he was Empire, when his mother and father were ruling the galaxy. So his parents were the last of the old rulers before the clones took over. We see him, like his future brother would, taking in the mural where Dusk and Rue find the secret passage, and that's exactly what happens to him. So this passage has been around for thousands of years, even at this point. But the twist is, he doesn't find, himself in there because he's the first version of him. Or the original version, I should say. What he finds is Demerzel, or at least Demerzel in her component parts, but she's still fully conscious. And she's been here hanging on this stories to tell and seems to be detailing the robotic wars over the years. And she even mentions Earth, which, as I've said in previous videos, at this point in the future, humans consider it the way that we think of Atlantis or the Garden of Eden. It's more a myth or a sort of abstract concept to them. And this goes on for years until he reaches Dawn's age. She says that she's 18,000 years old at this point and has had many names and faces, and all I'm going to say is remember that going forward. Now, over the years, Cleon debates putting her back together, but he's got other things on his mind. His mother's died and he's about to step up to the throne. And we see that he's not that keen on being emperor, as he sees it as a sort of box or a trap that he's being forced into. At this point, he's reached Brother Day's age, and we find out kind of how Demerzel came to be in this state. She was caught after losing a big battle, so I guess she was on the front lines of the robotic wars, and the Emperor at the time left her like this, so she contains all the information to make more robots. And again, I think that's going to be a very important part in the Foundation show. And even in this sort of early version, she really eggs on Cleon and feeds his ego. But he's conflicted, so eventually, after years, he reassembles her and kind of lets her go. I mean, she's still trapped in the cell. So after thousands of years, she's sort of free, but at least she's got her body back. She tells him more stories of the past in order to lure him in, and she's been there for 5,000 years, so a human lifetime is nothing to her when you think about it, and she basically says that at a few points throughout this episode. While the story's getting told, Cleon ages to Dusk's age, and he still hasn't gotten married or had children, so there's no clear line of succession, and I think you can all work out where this is going. He shows her that he's found some relics from Earth, and it's the tools that she uses to repair herself that we've seen in previous episodes and seasons, and then he finally frees her. He gives her the freedom to override her programming, as this Cleon is obsessed with her as Day is in the present Foundation storyline. But he limits her so she can harm anyone but him, and she can't leave her body, so he sort of puts a leash on her and she's not very happy about it. He explains his plan for the dynasty and it needs her to make sure it works, so he's bound her to the role of Empire exactly the same way that he's bound to it, so I guess that they're both prisoners. So despite all their power and their virtual immortality, neither any Cleon or Demerzel has the freedom that they appear to have. And we find out that this is the version of Cleon that Dusk and Rue found that's been narrating all this, and Dusk tells him about Day's plans to end the dynasty before he imprisons them, so they are trapped in the same cell that Demerzel was in all those centuries ago. Now, the big other cliffhanger from last week was Gaal potentially losing her body, and this episode picks up where the ceremony's still going on and Tellum's still trying to get control. Salvor uses the devices that were dampening her ability to disrupt what's going on in the ceremony and free Gaal, which I thought was a pretty smart and also pretty obvious idea, and I was kind of pissed off that it didn't occur to me. But she does manage to free her and they go on the run, and they realise that the beggar is still on the planet because Harry hasn't taken it. Salvor gives Gaal the Prime Radiant and holds them off while Gaal gets on board, but Tellum is better there. And obviously she's after the Prime Radiant for her own means. And we see Tellum try to manipulate Gaal. Being Tellum, she uses visions of Gale's father and also Salvor's death against her. They both jump into the future and see the mule, and I think this is a bigger deal than it's getting made out to be in this episode, but that's for another video. Salvor manages to get back on board the ship and saves Gaal from Tellum, just as Harry, yes, the live-action Harry that we thought was dead all those episodes ago, shows up and takes care of Tellum in a way that I can't really show on YouTube. So an absolutely massive twist. Now, I thought we would get a live-action Harry back, but I thought they would have to go back to Una's world and speak to Callie to get another copy of him. But it seems that he is still alive, but I suppose that depends on what your definition of life is. And again, I've got a lot of thoughts of this that I'm going to make another video on, so subscribe to make sure that you don't miss out. So last week left off with Bel Rios's fleet orbiting Terminus while Day was on his way to meet him along with Polly in hand. The fleet is still waiting to attack and they're going to get the Invictus ready for the defence of Terminus. Constant and Hobart meet Bel and Hobart's body swapping device tech comes into play, which I think might get used later on because it doesn't come up in this episode. Bel asks Hobart why he attacked Trantor, and Hobart explains he's actually starting to believe in Harry's plan. And he makes a great comparison that both him and Bel follow dead men, and yeah, there's a lot of parallels in this show, and I keep seeing them pop up. Constant thinks this is all part of Harry's plan to help change Bel's mind and swing things in their direction. And Constant points out that for all the ground the Foundation's taken in the Outer Reach, they haven't had to fight or spill blood for it, unlike the Empire. And when Day arrives, they're still planning the attack. They detect the Invictus in orbit and decide to talk rather than an outright fight. And Day really wants to make a spectacle of all this, which makes Bel even more nervous that he's not going to instantaneously attack. He goes down to the planet and meets Director Cermak, Constant's dad, and he offers Polly as a gift to prove his good faith before asking for the Foundation's surrender. And Day is really interested in what they've been up to. He wants to see the church that they've built, and the population's reaction to him is very, very interesting. Remember, none of these people have ever been to Trantor, and this guy is as much as a myth to them as Harry is. Day puts them on the spot and confronts them about the real work that they've been up to all these years, and seeing how they've spread the word of the church throughout the galaxy. And he sees them more as an armed cult, and the real danger that they actually pose, but the Foundation treats a lot of the technology that the Empire keeps in their own hands as if it's nothing. He kills the director and orders the death of everyone apart from the scientists and heads to the vault to meet Harry. And when they do, this gets very interesting. They kind of hint at it, but they don't specifically say it. But Harry seems to know or has a rough idea of what and who Demerzel is. He takes both of them into the vault and reminds Day that no matter what, the fall is coming and that it's an absolute fact. And also, the fact that Day's here means that it's happening already, because the Cleons that we've met previously wouldn't put this much effort into trying to negotiate peace. But you can tell this version of Day has spent a lot of time thinking and studying Harry Seldon. He thinks that he's the exception to Harry's plan as he's breaking the genetic dynasty, but Harry says that this isn't enough. And this is where it kind of gets a little bit shocking. Harry offers the Prime Radiant to Demerzel as he says that she'll understand it and can help guide humanity. Day's not having this and wants Harry to admit that he was wrong and walk back all the work that's been done with the Foundation, and Harry appeals to Demerzel that she can be the one to save them all. And I think there's a lot going on in this episode, but this is a key significant scene, and it kind of details elements of Harry Seldon's plan that most people wouldn't have already considered. But while this is all going on, the attack's getting ready in space. Before Bell can board the Invictus, it activates ready to defend Terminus. Bell attacks with almost no effect straight away as the Whisper ships arrive to support it. He launches his own fighters against them, and it all gets a bit of Attack on the Death Star from Star Wars. But as always, this looks great, and they're finally seeing what the Foundation's capable of. They manage to break through the Invictus's defences and get a few big hits in, but this is at the cost of Bell's husband, who we don't see die, but he crashes on the planet. Day orders Bell to take the Invictus out the sky, effectively crashing it into the planet and destroying the Foundation just as he leaves the vault. He also, once he's back on board the ship, takes Constant and Hobart to the bridge to watch the destruction. But before this, Demerzel has a moment and says that she's been called away for more important matters. So I guess that this is Dusk and Rue stuck in the prison back on Trantor, but it's not really confirmed. And she basically tells Day exactly what she thinks of him and who he is, and this really seems to be the thing that's going to break the guy. But he does fire on the Invictus, crashing it into Terminus and the Foundation and his husband, as we see the people on the planet watch as it falls towards them. So it all seems to be coming to an end on Terminus for the first Foundation just as this episode ends with a huge firestorm, and Day has seemingly won, at least for the moment. And that's pretty much where the episode ends. And there's so much going on here, it's absolutely insane. I thought this episode might all be Demerzel's backstory, and we got a lot more than that. I could probably just do a series of videos on the opening scene of this episode on its own, but the rest of the episode was completely solid. We got some great action, some great setup, a lot of things going on here, and a lot of things that we hadn't expected. We've still got one episode to go, and the Foundation seems like it's really down and out. But remember, in episode 8, Salvor asked Harry if Terminus would survive the crisis, and he didn't answer her, so I guess he has anticipated that this might happen. We also get the live action Harry back, and as I said, I've got a few ideas about what's going on there and what to expect, so look forward to more theory videos this week as well. But as always, these are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. If you're a new subscriber to the channel, thanks for joining us. I'm going to do a live stream this Sunday. I'll put the times up on screen, and I hope that you can all join me there. Also, make sure you've got the notifications turned on if you are subscribed so that you don't miss it. And as always, leave a like on the video if you've made it this far as well. I'm really keen to hear what you think's going to happen in the finale, and a lot of stuff that went on in this episode. I'm going to have to watch it a few more times before I get into the theory videos. But yeah, I think definitely the most action-packed, jam-packed episode of The Foundation. Now that all the stories are kind of all coming together, the pace is really picking up. But do you think Tellum's dead? Do you think she's still going to be the mule? What's going on with live-action Harry? Let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at The Geeks Reviews. As always, my name's Al. Thanks for watching.